I never expected serving champagne at his engagement party would change everything. One look across that crowded ballroom, one whispered confession from a billionaire's lips, and suddenly my entire world shattered and rebuilt itself in the same breath. Some love stories begin at the worst possible moment. Before we dive into this incredible story of unexpected love and second chances, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this unfolds. Now, let me tell you about the night that changed everything. My name is Melody, and 6 months ago, I was just another face in the crowd of servers working Manhattan's elite parties. I had dreams bigger than my bank account and student loans that felt heavier than my hopes some days. Event planning was my passion, but paying rent was my reality. So there I was, polishing champagne glasses in a penthouse that probably cost more than I'd make in 10 years, getting ready to serve drinks at one of the most exclusive engagement parties of the year. The party was for Andrew Cross, the tech billionaire who'd made headlines for creating an app that revolutionized how people connect professionally. At 32, he was worth more money than most small countries, and tonight he was celebrating his engagement to Isabella Kane, a socialite whose family had old money written in their DNA. I'd seen their photos in magazines. They looked perfect together, like they'd stepped out of a fairy tale where everyone was beautiful and rich. But when I saw Andrew that night, something felt off. He moved through his own engagement party like he was sleepwalking. His smile never quite reached his eyes, and even when Isabella wrapped her arms around him for photos, he seemed to be looking somewhere else. Somewhere beyond the crowd, beyond the celebration, beyond the life that everyone assumed he wanted. I was refilling champagne glasses when it happened. I turned from the bar, tray balanced perfectly in my hands, and found myself looking directly into his eyes from across the room. For a moment, the entire party seemed to fade away. The laughter, the clinking glasses, the string quartet, it all became background noise. He was staring at me with an intensity that made my breath catch, and I couldn't look away. "Excuse me," a voice beside me said, and I snapped back to reality. It was Andrew, somehow having crossed the entire room in what felt like seconds. "Could you take care of our table? We're running low on drinks." His voice was softer than I expected, more genuine than the polished tone he'd been using with his guests all evening. I nodded, professional as always, and followed him to the VIP section, where Isabella was holding court with their closest friends and family. As I served their table, I could feel his eyes on me, watching the way I moved, the way I smiled politely at his guests, the way I made sure everyone felt taken care of. The evening wore on, and something strange kept happening. Every time I looked up, Andrew was looking at me. Not in a creepy way, but with a curiosity that made my heart race. When I was clearing glasses from a nearby table, I heard him tell Isabella he needed some air. She barely looked up from her conversation with her bridesmaids. I was serving the final round of champagne when he appeared beside me again. "Could I speak with you for a moment?" he asked quietly. On the balcony, every professional instinct told me to politely decline. Guests don't ask servers for private conversations, especially not grooms at their own engagement parties. But something in his voice, a vulnerability I hadn't heard all night, made me nod. The balcony overlooked the entire city, twinkling lights stretching out like stars. The cool air was a relief after the warm, crowded party inside. We stood there in silence for a moment, and I could hear the distant sounds of his celebration continuing without him. "This is going to sound crazy," he said finally, not looking at me, but staring out at the city. "But I've been watching you all night." My cheeks burned. "Mr. Cross, I should really get back to work." "Andrew," he said, turning to face me, "and please, just give me 1 minute." I should have walked away, should have remembered my place, my professionalism, my boundaries. But something in his eyes kept me rooted to the spot. "I've been engaged for 6 months," he continued, his voice barely above a whisper. 6 months of planning this party, of smiling for photos, of pretending this is what I want. And then tonight, I see you moving through that crowd with such grace. Such genuine kindness with everyone you meet, and I realized something. He paused, running a hand through his hair, in a gesture that seemed more human than anything I'd seen from him all evening. It should have been you. The words hit me like a physical blow. I took a step back, shaking my head. You don't even know me. You're right, he said. I don't know your name, your story, your dreams. But I know that in 3 hours of watching you work, you've shown more authenticity than I've felt in 6 months of this engagement. You light up when you help people. You remember drink preferences after one interaction. You made that elderly gentleman laugh when he looked lonely. You're real in a world where everything feels fake. I was trembling now, from the cold air and from his words. This is crazy. You're getting married. To someone beautiful and perfect, and from your world. Perfect on paper, he said sadly. But paper doesn't make you feel alive. It doesn't make you want to be a better person. It doesn't make you realize you've been sleepwalking through your own life. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a business card. Not his corporate one, but something simpler, handwritten. This is my personal number, he said, holding it out to me. I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. I'm not asking you to turn your life upside down. I'm just asking you to think about it, about the possibility that sometimes the universe puts people in your path when you need them most. I took the card with shaking fingers. What about Isabella? What about your party, your life? That's something I need to figure out, he said. But I know I can't figure it out without at least knowing if what I felt tonight was real. If this connection I feel is something you felt too. Inside, someone was calling his name. The groom was needed for another toast, another photo, another moment of his carefully orchestrated life. I have to go, he said. But Melody. I looked up, surprised he knew my name. I heard one of the other servers call you that, he explained with a small smile. It suits you. There's music in the way you move through the world. And then he was gone, leaving me alone on that balcony with a business card and a heart beating so fast I thought it might burst. I stared at that card for 3 days. 3 long days of going through my normal routine. My tiny apartment, my regular catering jobs, my evening classes and business management, all while replaying those moments on the balcony over and over. Was I crazy to think about calling? Was he crazy for asking me to? On the 4th day, I called. I wasn't sure you would, he said when he heard my voice. No hello, no pretense. Like he'd been waiting by the phone. I wasn't sure either, I admitted. Coffee? He asked. Somewhere quiet, somewhere we can actually talk. We met at a little coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from his usual Manhattan haunts. He was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth, looking more relaxed than I'd ever seen him. Jeans instead of a suit, a simple sweater instead of designer labels. He looked like a regular person, and maybe that's when I started falling. Tell me about yourself, he said, as I sat down with my latte. The real you, not the professional server version. So I did. I told him about growing up in Detroit, about my mom who worked 2 jobs to put me through college, about my dreams of opening my own event planning company. I told him about the student loans that kept me up at night, and the notebook where I sketched ideas for weddings I'd probably never plan. I told him things I'd never told anyone, and he listened like every word mattered. Your turn, I said eventually. Tell me about the real Andrew, not the magazine version. He smiled. And this time, it reached his eyes. The real Andrew wanted to be a teacher, he said. Before the money, before the company, I wanted to teach kids about technology. I wanted to inspire them the way my 8th grade computer science teacher inspired me. What happened to that dream? Success, he said with a bitter laugh. The app took off, the money poured in, and suddenly everyone had expectations. My family, Isabella's family, the board of directors. Somewhere along the way, I stopped asking what I wanted and started doing what everyone expected. We talked for 3 hours about books and movies and the places we wanted to travel, about his complicated relationship with wealth and my complicated relationship with ambition, about how we both felt like we were living lives that didn't quite fit. When we finally left the coffee shop, he walked me to the subway station. "I'd like to see you again," he said, "if you want to." I looked up at him. This man who was supposed to be planning a wedding to someone else, who was supposed to be living a perfect life, who was supposed to be nothing more than a stranger I served drinks to one night. "Yes," I said, "I want to." He kissed me then, soft and sweet, on that busy Brooklyn street corner. It was my first kiss in 2 years, and it felt like coming home and stepping off a cliff all at the same time. Our second date was at a jazz club in the village. He brought me sunflowers instead of roses because he remembered me mentioning that roses always felt too formal, too expected. We sat in the back, listening to a woman with a voice like honey sing about love and loss, and he told me about the charity work he did quietly, away from the cameras. Work with kids who reminded him why he'd wanted to teach in the first place. Our third date was a picnic in Central Park. He packed sandwiches and brought a blanket, and we spent the afternoon talking about our childhoods, our fears, our hopes for the future. He told me about the pressure he felt to live up to everyone's expectations, and I told him about the fear I had of never being enough. When it started to rain, we ran laughing to the nearest shelter, and he pulled me close, both of us soaking wet and breathless. "I haven't felt this happy in years," he whispered against my hair. "Me either," I whispered back. But happiness, I was learning, could be complicated when it came with secrets. We had to be careful, meeting in out-of-the-way places, using his personal phone instead of his business line. He was still technically engaged, still planning a wedding, still living a public life that didn't include me. The weight of the secret was heavy, especially when I'd see photos of him and Isabella at charity events or restaurant openings, him smiling that polished smile, while I knew he'd been texting me just hours before. "I'm going to tell her," he said one evening, as we walked along the Hudson River. "I'm going to end the engagement." "Andrew," I started, but he took my hands in his. "I mean it, Melody. This isn't fair to any of us. Not to you, not to Isabella, not to me. I can't keep living a lie. What if this is just an escape for you?" I asked, voicing the fear that had been keeping me awake at night. "What if I'm just the exciting secret, and when reality hits, you'll realize you want your old life back?" He stopped walking and turned to face me. "Do you really think that's what this is?" I looked into his eyes, those same eyes that had found me across a crowded room and changed everything. "No," I said finally. "I don't think that's what this is." "Then trust me," he said. "Trust us." 2 weeks later, he asked me to spend the weekend at his cabin upstate. It was a risk. The first time we'd be together somewhere he might be recognized. The first time we'd have real privacy. Real time to see if what we felt in stolen moments could translate to something bigger. The cabin was nothing like his penthouse. It was cozy and warm, with a stone fireplace and windows that looked out over a lake. "I bought this place when I first made money," he explained as he showed me around. "I wanted somewhere that felt real, somewhere I could remember who I was before everything got complicated." We cooked dinner together that first night. Pasta and wine and laughter that echoed off the wooden beams. After dinner, we sat by the fire, and he pulled me close. "I love you," he said simply. "I know it's fast, I know it's complicated, but I love you, Melody." My heart stopped. "Andrew, you don't have to say it back," he said quickly. "I just needed you to know." But I did love him. I'd been falling a little more each day, with each text that made me smile, each look that made me feel seen, each moment that made me believe in possibilities I'd never imagined. "I love you too," I whispered. He kissed me then, deeper than ever before, and I felt like I was melting into him, becoming part of something bigger than myself. We spent that night wrapped in each other's arms, talking until dawn about the life we wanted to build together. The next morning, we made breakfast and planned our future like it was the most natural thing in the world. He would break things off with Isabella properly, publicly. We would face whatever media storm came together. He would step back from some of his business obligations to focus on the things that mattered. I would launch my event planning business with his support, but as a partner, not a dependent. It felt possible, sitting there in that peaceful cabin with the man I loved. It felt like we could take on the world. But the world, it turned out, was about to take on us. Isabella showed up that afternoon without warning. One minute, Andrew and I were planning a hike around the lake. And the next minute, she was standing in the doorway with her designer luggage and her perfectly styled hair, and her eyes full of suspicion that turned to fury when she saw me. "So this is where you've been disappearing to," she said, her voice ice cold. "I should have known." "Isabella," Andrew started, stepping protectively in front of me. "We need to talk." "Oh, we're going to talk," she said, pushing past him to face me directly. "What's your name, sweetheart?" "Melody," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Melody," she repeated mockingly. "How poetic. Tell me, Melody, what's your price? Because men like Andrew don't fall for women like you without a very clear transaction involved." "That's enough," Andrew said sharply. But Isabella was just getting started. "Do you have any idea who you're messing with? I can destroy your little catering career with one phone call. I can make sure you never work another event in this city. I can make your life hell, and trust me, I will if you don't walk away right now." I felt myself shrinking under her words, all my old insecurities rising to the surface. Who was I kidding? I was a girl from Detroit with student loans and big dreams, and she was royalty in this world. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was all just a fantasy. "Don't listen to her," Andrew said, reaching for my hand, but I pulled away. "Maybe she's right," I said quietly. "Maybe this is crazy. Maybe I should go." "Melody, no," Andrew said, and I could hear the panic in his voice. But I was already moving, gathering my things, my heart breaking with every step. "I'm sorry," I said, not looking at either of them. "This was a mistake." I left them there in that beautiful cabin and drove back to the city with tears streaming down my face. When I got home, I deleted his number, threw away the sunflowers he'd brought me, and tried to pretend that the best month of my life had never happened. For 6 months, I threw myself into work. I saved every penny, took business classes online, and finally launched Melody Events, my own small event planning company. It wasn't much, mostly small birthday parties and anniversary celebrations, but it was mine. I was proud of what I was building, even if my heart still ached every time I passed that coffee shop in Brooklyn or heard jazz music in a restaurant. I tried not to follow news about Andrew, but it was impossible to avoid completely. The tabloids had a field day when he called off his engagement just 2 weeks after our weekend at the cabin. Isabella told the press it was mutual, but the gossip blogs speculated about other women, secret affairs, cold feet. I wondered if he ever thought about me, if he regretted letting me walk away, if he was happy. Then, on a rainy Tuesday in March, I got a call that changed everything. "Melody Events, this is Melody." "Ms. Johnson, this is Patricia Walsh from Walsh Communications. I have a client who would like to hire your services for a major charity gala." My heart stopped. A major event meant major money, major exposure, major opportunity for my little company. "The client wishes to remain anonymous for now," Patricia continued, "but I can tell you the budget is substantial, and they specifically requested you based on your reputation for authentic, heartfelt events." I almost laughed. My reputation? I'd been in business for 6 months and had planned maybe 20 small events, but I wasn't about to question a miracle. "I'd be honored to discuss the details," I said. The gala was for a children's literacy charity, to be held at the Museum of Natural History. The budget was more than I'd made in my entire first year of business. The client wanted elegance, but not ostentation, celebration, but not excess. They wanted an event that honored the cause and the people it served. I threw myself into planning like my life depended on it. Maybe it did. This was my chance to prove that my little company could handle big events, that I belonged in this world I'd been trying to break into for so long. The night of the gala, I arrived early to oversee the final setup. The museum looked magical: warm lighting, elegant flowers, space for both the formal dinner and the program that would highlight the charity's work. I was proud of what we'd created, proud of the team I'd assembled, proud of the woman I'd become in the months since my heart had been broken. The guests started arriving, and I moved through the crowd, making sure everything was perfect. The evening was going flawlessly until I saw him. Andrew stood at the entrance, looking devastatingly handsome in his tuxedo, but older somehow, more serious than the man I'd fallen in love with. My heart stopped, and for a moment I couldn't breathe. He saw me at the same moment, and his face transformed with a smile that lit up the entire room. He started walking toward me, and I realized with a shock that crashed over me like a wave. He was my anonymous client. He had planned this whole thing. "Hello, Melody," he said when he reached me, his voice warm and familiar, and everything I'd been missing. "You," I said, barely managing to get the word out. "Me," he agreed. "You look beautiful. This event is incredible." "Andrew, I'm working." "I know," he said. "Do your job. Be brilliant. I'll be right here when you're ready." The evening continued around us, but I felt like I was moving through a dream. Every time I looked up, Andrew was there, talking to guests about the charity, bidding generously at the silent auction, watching me with those eyes that had started this whole impossible story. When it came time for the speeches, the charity director took the microphone to thank everyone for coming. "Before we conclude," she said, "I'd like to invite our primary benefactor to say a few words. Andrew Cross?" My heart stopped as Andrew walked to the podium. He looked out over the crowd, and then his eyes found mine. "6 months ago," he began, "I thought I knew what I wanted from life. I thought I understood success, happiness, love. I was wrong about all of it." The room was completely silent, hanging on his every word. I learned that real success isn't about money or fame or living up to other people's expectations. It's about being brave enough to choose authenticity over comfort. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be the best version of yourself. He paused, and I felt tears starting to form in my eyes. I learned that real love doesn't care about social boundaries or expectations or what looks good on paper. Real love is about finding someone whose dreams inspire you, whose strength humbles you, whose presence makes you feel more alive than you've ever felt. The crowd was starting to murmur, sensing this wasn't a typical charity speech. "Melody," he said, looking directly at me, "you changed my life that night at my engagement party. Not because you were beautiful, though you are, but because you showed me what it looks like to live with grace and kindness and authenticity. You showed me who I wanted to be." I was crying now, not caring that hundreds of people were watching. "I let you walk away once because I was scared. Scared of the media, scared of disappointing people, scared of choosing love over expectation. But I'm not scared anymore." He stepped away from the podium and started walking toward me through the crowd. "I love you, Melody Johnson. I love your dreams and your determination, and the way you make everyone around you feel special. I love that you turned a small event planning business into something magical in just 6 months. I love that you're brave enough to bet on yourself even when the world tells you you're not enough." He was standing in front of me now, the entire gala, watching our private moment play out in public. "I know I hurt you. I know I let you down when you needed me to be strong. But if you'll give me another chance, I promise to spend every day proving that choosing love over fear is the best decision I've ever made." The room was completely silent. I could hear my heart beating, could feel the weight of hundreds of eyes on us, could see the hope and vulnerability in Andrew's face. "Yes," I whispered, and then louder, "Yes." He kissed me then, in front of everyone, and the room erupted in applause. I kissed him back, tasting salt from my tears and feeling like my heart might burst from happiness. That was a year ago. Today, as I write this, I'm sitting in our apartment, with my laptop balanced on my knees, and Andrew making coffee in the kitchen. Melody Events has grown beyond my wildest dreams, planning weddings and galas and celebrations that bring people together in authentic, meaningful ways. Andrew stepped back from day-to-day operations of his company to focus on the charity work that feeds his soul, and he's never been happier. Next month, we're having our own engagement party. I'm planning it myself, of course, and it's going to be nothing like that night we met. It's going to be small and intimate, surrounded by people who love us for who we really are, not who they think we should be. Sometimes I think about that scared girl who almost walked away from the best thing that ever happened to her. I think about how easy it would have been to let fear win, to decide that love across different worlds was too complicated, too risky, too impossible. But the truth is, love isn't about finding someone from your world. It's about finding someone who makes you brave enough to expand your world, to become the person you were always meant to be, to choose authenticity over expectation every single day. And that's exactly what we did. And that's how a simple catering job led to the love of a lifetime. Sometimes the best things happen when we least expect them, when we're brave enough to say yes to possibilities that scare us. If this story touched your heart, give it a thumbs up and share it with someone who believes in true love. What would you have done in Melody's situation? Would you have been brave enough to take that leap? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe for more incredible stories like this one. Until next time, keep believing in love and keep believing in yourself.